Billy. Lieutenant Coen.
So, you seem to know me. Been fantasizing about me, have you?
Hello everyone, and welcome to Golly, a gaming podcast brought to you by EZIYODA.com. I am the greatly maligned Tony Cocking, and I am joined by Lady Valiant, a woman of most fanciful jest.
Hi.
I hope you like that introduction, because we're not doing it again.
No, I love it.
Excellent. I hate it. But we are greatly excited to bring you this first episode, potentially last episode, of our really ambitious podcast idea. We decided that no one had ever done a gaming podcast before in the history of podcasts, so we thought we'd jump on that. Yeah. So, lady, what would you like to tell the people about yourself before we get stuck in for today's episode?
Oh, very little to nothing.
Excellent, I like it. Mystery. Every subsequent episode, we're going to unravel part of your past, like some sort of film noir.
Oh gosh, yeah, it becomes some sort of real crime thing.
Why is there crime? What are you going to do?
What do you mean? What am I going to do? Like future tense.
Excellent, wonderful. This is for all ages, obviously.
Yeah.
And in the very first episode, we are going to be covering, I don't know what that was going to be covering a game that is greatly close to both of our hearts in Resident Evil 0.
Yay.
We're excited for very particular reasons, and we will perhaps allude to that, or perhaps it'll be part of the murder mystery.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So, because I'm really professional, I've got right in front of me a description from a reputable website about Resident Evil 0 that I would like to reel off for people's information, as they may not be familiar with what makes this Resident so evil.
Do so. Lay it on us.
Okay, here we go. Narrator voice. It's going to be the same as my regular voice.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's good. Resident Evil 0 is a survival horror game developed and published by Capcom for the GameCube in 2002. It is a prequel to Resident Evil 1996, covering the ordeals experienced in the Arklay Mountains by Special Police Force Unit, fucking hell, the STARS Bravo team. The story, it says fucking hell in the article, it's really unprofessional. The story follows Officer Rebecca Chambers and convict Billy Coen as they explore an abandoned training facility for employees of the pharmaceutical company Umbrella. The gameplay is similar to other Resident Evil games, but adds the ability to switch between characters to solve puzzles and use unique abilities. Ugh, God, that was painful.
That was beautiful.
That's we're going to watch the retention rating, and I think that's where it's going to drop right there.
Who cares?
So, when Resident Evil Remake came out on the GameCube, it was basically their attempt to fix everything that they felt was outdated in the 1996 PlayStation original Resident Evil. So, this is actually the first original mainline series title since Nemesis on the PS1, which came out in 1990... shit, I don't know. 9? 8? Help?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sure you've got this in your back pocket.
I don't.
Excellent.
No back pockets at all.
Recording in the nude, I love it.
Always.
But, so Resident Evil 0, I guess they really wanted to challenge the norms of the series. So, as it says, there were no item boxes to take items from place to place magically. You had to pick them up, carry them between the two characters, and if you ran out of room, you just put things on the floor like a child who can't clean their room. So it was it was a neat concept, I would say, but how would you say they actually pulled it off?
Realistic, isn't it? The idea that, in real life, you carry something, you put it down. It doesn't just magically spawn at someone else's house when you need it. You have to, like, take it there. But it leads to a lot of backtracking in the game.
I also think, though, that, like, these are highly trained people, like Billy Coen is a former special ops, spoiler alert, guy, and, Rebecca Chambers is a member of this elite police force unit, and yet they've got, these shotguns and these acid rounds and rocket launchers, and they resolve to put it on the floor.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true.
I don't think that's in basic training, to be honest.
Yeah, and look, it does result in, like, a room being just kind of, like, smothered in litter, in effect. You have all your shiny objects just glimmering all over the floor, and then you try and find the one thing you need. It can't be done.
No, because I end up, from personal experience, I ended up, in some of the, rooms are quite cramped, so you're just putting everything within, like, 3 inches of each other, and Billy Coen has a tendency to pick up the knife no matter where it is in the room. 5 feet away, he's like, a knife! That's the Billy Coen voice now.
I think it's fair to draw upon, like, where our personal experiences lie in this, because I have no personal experience in playing this game myself.
Excellent. Why did we record this episode?
Well, because it's dear to our hearts, It's
yes.
like, yeah, I have things to say. I know stuff. I can contribute worth.
So
I tell myself every day.
So basically, Resident Evil 0, it starts off with a train level, which to many is considered to be the best segment of the game. It's in tight quarters, so it is tension-filled, it's unique, it's got some great set pieces. For some reason, it's got a scorpion on the train, which is a bit of a choice that I wouldn't have made that choice. I would have had, like, a displeased patron of the train, but that's just me.
Just like a boss level, like, train conductor who, like, really needs their ticket stubs checked. Is that what you would have preferred?
Yes, just an angry fat controller.
That would scare me more than a scorpion.
Oh wait, they can't call him that anymore. He's Mr. Topham Hat now, isn't he? Like,
yeah. Oh, careful, you got to cut that out.
Damn. All right, we're gonna get cancelled. Look, as a fat man myself, I feel like I can opine on the robust frame of Mr. Hat.
Oh well, then same here. As a fat man myself.
This is why we've never seen your face. It's all a scam.
I never said I wasn't a scam.
You very much leaned into the narrative.
Yeah, exactly.
But when you get off the train, then it sort of transitions to going towards the training facility. And then it kind of all sticks around that same area to varying degrees of success.
Yeah.
Look, I'm going to draw a lot of my thoughts and opinions on personal experience, obviously. I only played this game for the first time earlier this year. That is indeed how Lady Valiant and I met. She stumbled upon my stream, and I have been cursing her ever since.
Yeah, it's been stuck with me a little bit.
Yeah. Now, when I say cursing you, do I mean I am a curse to you, or I'm just swearing in your vague direction?
I like to think both. I like to think it's like, it's not mutually exclusive.
Those poor soldiers. They were good men just doing their jobs, and that scum murdered them and escaped.
All right, everyone, let's separate and survey the area. Our friend is brutal and ruthless. Keep your guard up.
Obviously, if you've played Resident Evil games before, as in like the classic style of Resident Evil games, then you'll get used to it pretty early on. A lot of people were unhappy with their choice to retain the same fixed camera angles and...
Like the tank controls?
The tank controls,
even though later on you've got the, alternative controls.
Yeah. So, look, unfortunately, it's a bit of a divisive title, I would say.
It is, though, isn't it? Like, it's actually controversial.
Yeah.
Opinions.
And, like, people who really dislike it are vociferous. Is that how you pronounce that word? I only ever see it writing.
I think that's how you pronounce it. That's how I would pronounce it.
Excellent. Vociferous it is.
Yes.
But they're really outspoken, which is another better word to use, in their disdain for this game. because, look, a lot of its design elements are cumbersome, we shall say.
I think the story is the bigger issue for me. Like, obviously it's a prequel. Obviously it's got, it's limited with what it can actually, go into without, stepping on the toes of the previous games. But there is no real character arc for any character in the game, and there's no real expansion of the understanding and the lore of Resident Evil. It's just kind of a non-story.
As you say, the stakes can't be very high because, Rebecca obviously can't die.
Yeah.
She died multiple times on my playthrough, but that's neither here nor there.
We don't mention that. That's fine.
Do we go into spoilers in this stream? It's not a stream, it's a podcast. That's a different thing. Do we go to spoilers or do we keep it spoiler-free, do you think?
I think we need to have spoilers.
Excellent.
I think
Look,
if we're doing a deep dive on a single game, we need to.
Especially one that is literally 20 years old this year.
Yeah, if people really don't want spoilers, they're not going to listen to a Resident Evil 0 episode.
Yeah. Oh, this is my first time hearing of this fabulous game. But, okay.
Well, to be fair, that might be the case because it's actually really overlooked.
It is, yeah. It's like people go, 1, 2, 3, 4. They'll only go with numbered titles for the most part.
Yeah.
0 is a number, but it's not the number of anyone's...
I like how you had to re-clarify.
Yeah, because otherwise, someone's going to be listening to the podcast and being like, 0 is a number, dickhead.
Yeah, I didn't mention it because I was like, I don't need to. Someone else will.
Exactly. One of our 3 listeners.
Exactly.
But yeah, they don't even kill off Billy. And I feel like for a character who is introduced into a prequel, that's a pretty good opportunity to kill them off.
Yeah. And he's never brought back again.
No.
He's just gone.
Never. I would love to see him come back, actually. Look, you may have noticed that the run sheet we have, I am jumping all over the fucking place. This is why I'm not a good host.
I definitely noticed this immediately.
If you want to tie it all back together, by all means.
Immediately you did it.
Even within the introduction, I think.
Yeah, no, it was. I was like, oh, got it. I see how it is.
But I'd love to see Billy come back at some point because there's kind of a thing with Resident Evil games now where I feel like because the series took a bit of a drop into too much cheesiness, they've kind of separated, all right, these are the characters we're keeping from the characters who we're just going to kind of put aside. So, like a Chris Redfield, for example. He's a staple. He still comes back. But other characters, not so lucky.
See, I think it is the case that Resident Evil 0 was like a catalyst for change in the Resident Evil titles. Because from there were big changes made. It was like a big learning curve for them. The idea of what's working in this game is not going to work moving forward. But there was a lot of already kind of outdated elements at play there, I think.
Yeah, because it started in development in 1998 as a Nintendo 64 game.
Yeah,
I've still got the article in front of me, so I could pull that out.
Yeah, well, it's true.
So technically speaking, its genesis started before the Resident Evil remake, despite coming out afterwards.
Yeah, 7 months afterwards.
Yeah. And then when Resident Evil Remake came out, it not necessarily ballyhooed at the time, and the disappointing sales of the remake, more so than 0, would lead to the franchise taking a completely different turn.
Yeah. I think because they came out, 7 months is a short span of time with games, especially, the same titles. So, neither really performed. They were both, commercially okay, but not really overall.
And a lot of that, I think, comes down to the sort of somewhat tepid response to the GameCube. And I say this as someone who has, in the past, claimed the GameCube as their favorite all-time Nintendo console.
I think I read that.
Oh, well, as long as someone did.
It's always going to be me.
But, what? Okay. As someone who has... as someone who has now absolutely fallen in love with the Resident Evil franchise... primarily because of the Resident Evil remake, which I played for the first time last year, it's really sad that, it was the right. It was the right execution at the wrong time, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's just the certain ideas that with the fixed camera angles and the tank controls and the way that inventory was managed in Resident Evil 0 where you just drop everything on the floor. There were things that were just frustrating to players moving forward, I think. And I think they're things that add an element of skill and charm to playing those games. Like, you need to really manage things, and it creates this real sense of claustrophobia and suspense and pressure. A little bit like Dust Boat. Have you seen Dust Boat?
No, is that the same?
Side note.
Is that the same as Das Boot?
It's a film. Well, it's pronounced Das Boot.
What?
West German film. Das Boot, yeah.
It's actually pronounced Das Boot. Boat.
It's spelt like boot, but it's Das Boot.
Are you shitting me?
No, I would never.
I didn't know you were so fluent in German, for one thing.
Oh, yeah, no. Well, that film with the sense of claustrophobia and things, like, there's something about it that's like, in terms of the horror idea, in terms of what that's creating for the player, in terms of, atmosphere, it's really significant. But it's kind of lost because, well, now we want different things as players. Now we care about those achievements. Now we care about, snappier like controls and things.
And I guess that's why I'm really glad that the independent development industry has really taken off, because they're the kind of people who can take these chances for these games that give you claustrophobia or give you something that strays from the norm now. Because I'm finding that with a lot of games from AAA studios, they are pristine examples of the same thing.
Yeah, it's the kind of idea where it's like paint by numbers in a way.
Yeah.
You know what audiences want. You know how to like meet those expectations and therefore like quotas. So it's a sad sign of the times with that.
Yeah, and I get it as well, because if it's going to appeal more to a mass market to have first-person shooters, then you make first-person shooters. There's no denying that.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, it's sad.
It is. Yeah.
Thank you.
Don't mention it. Just keeping my word. We promised to cooperate with each other. Remember?
Actually, jumping ahead, because I don't know where the fuck I am.
Jumping to where?
You'll find out. It's like a roulette wheel. It just kind of spins and spins.
I love how it benefits both of us to do it this way, yes.
Yes, exactly. I wanted to take some time to actually talk about the protagonists of this game, Rebecca Chambers and Billy Coen. What are your thoughts on the dynamic duo?
Well, it's interesting you should say dynamic duo when I wouldn't necessarily agree with that.
I'm just turning a phrase, that's all.
Oh, gosh. There's just... there's nothing to really like or hate about either of them, really. I mean, Billy is a bit problematic, he's a character of the time in many ways, being pretty toxic with his masculinity and so on. But he's supposed to be this, like, convict who supposedly murdered 23 people. Like, he's a bad guy, so why would he speak respectfully to anybody? It doesn't make sense that he would. So he needs to be misunderstood enough in the beginning so that you kind of think that that is the case. Rebecca's interesting because she's just... There is a bit of spunk to her, I think. She does, like, stand up for herself, but she's just very reactive. She doesn't really contribute a lot herself. Like, story-wise, there's, like, nothing really. I don't really like or hate either of them.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, actually, you talk about Rebecca standing up for herself. There's a YouTube channel called Boulder Punch, where he's been looking one by one at the Resident Evil games. And one thing he brought up is how Rebecca in Resident Evil 0 has a little bit of fire to her, a little bit of, spunk. She's not a pushover, right?
Yeah.
But in Resident Evil 1, the original on the PlayStation, and then subsequently Resident Evil 1 Remake, she has no depth to her whatsoever. Like, the first time you see her, she's, like, cowering in fear from a zombie. She just does this 180, and
And that's the day after, isn't it? Like, in terms of the actual, like, order of events. Isn't that, like, the day after the events that have happened in Resident Evil 0?
I think
where
so.
She has been killing zombies and monsters and things?
Yeah, and you could call it, like, very early onset PTSD if you'd like. But because, like, in the final scene of Resident Evil 0, before Billy goes to live in the forest, for the rest of his life, apparently, they see the mansion, and Rebecca's like, "Oh, I'm going there. That's where Captain Forrest? Was it Forrest? Was Forrest her captain?
Oh, gosh, what's the name?
You need the lore, Valiant. That's what you're here for.
I need the... Is that what I'm here for? What am I here for? Let's be honest.
You're here to boost the ratings, okay?
How do I boost ratings? I'm this, like, mystery anomaly.
Yes. Can you put them in your CV, the mystery anomaly?
I should. I'm going to brand everything as that from now on. That's perfect.
I think I like the characters a bit more than most other people. Billy is, as you say, he's a product of the time. He was written to be like this stereotypical bad boy, so he's really condescending, but he shows that he has a heart of gold. Like, he
steps up when he needs to.
Yeah.
Saves the day.
He's an unspectacular character, but not necessarily any worse than some of the other characters of the Resident Evil franchise at the time. I quite like Rebecca in so much that... Actually, I don't even know why I like Rebecca. It's because she's pretty, I think. I like her hair.
I think it's like, she doesn't annoy me like a lot of female protagonists in games can annoy me.
That's a good point as well, yeah.
She's, like, decent. She's, like, a good and decent and, like, respectful person. So, and the fact she does stand up for herself, like, when Billy's calling her doll face and, like, speaking to her in certain ways, she's, like, she doesn't just take that lying down. So she's a bit more of, like, I think Princess Leia is a stretch, but kind of towards that ilk of, like, female, like, hero.
Princess Lema, maybe. Yeah, that's not getting in.
Sorry, I think you cut out there.
I will say, though, there are too many scenarios, for my taste, where Billy saves her.
Yeah.
And you could say, okay, he's a veteran, like, he's seen it all. She's a rookie, I think. Like, I'm not too sure. I know that, like, Jill was, but then again, Leon was also very, it was his first day in Resident Evil 2, and he didn't come across as a damsel until the movie that came out recently.
Yeah, and I think part of that as well is the way that the characters themselves function. Like, the idea that Billy does have a higher defense level and, has, like, the lighter and things, and, like, for Rebecca, it's like she can mix herbs together. She can play with flowers, but basically it's kind of leading into some of those, like, preconceived hegemonic notions of gender, which is fine. Again, a little bit of the sign of the times. I mean, there are times when she does save the day, but she's not, like, saving Billy. Like, she kills the tyrants and stuff, that happens, but it isn't like, she's saving Billy per se.
No, and the closest she gets to saving Billy is when she retrieves him from down in the water treatment plant, but he's just kind of lying there, like, he might get up at his own volition at some point.
It's just a little, sauna moment, really.
Now I will have my revenge on Umbrella, and the world will burn in an inferno of hate!
You'll pay for what you've done!
We'll see which one of us is gonna die!
The antagonist of this particular game.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah, so we have Marcus, who... Yeah. This is probably the thing I dislike most about this game, is through the narrative of 1 through 3 presented it as, like, a virus that makes people zombified. So, you have zombified dogs, you have, like, rabid plants, you have everything kind of following this whole, it's chemically altered with narrative. Then, to open Resident Evil 0, you have Marcus standing on a mountain, singing a lovely song, and infesting the train with leeches.
Yeah, because the leeches are controlled through music.
I mean, like the Rat King does to Splinter, just...
Yeah, it's a Pied Piper kind of angle, I think, isn't it? As well? Like,
is it now?
Well, I guess the Pied Piper was trying to be good, and this isn't good. This is like opera singing for harm.
Okay, that's the title. Actually, though...
Yeah.
All right, wait. Two things. First of all, was the Pied Piper trying to do anything good?
Wasn't he trying to, like, save people from rats? Wasn't that the point? He was trying to lead them.
No, he was just, like, having children follow him, wasn't he?
Wait, I thought he played the pipe to lure rats to follow him, not children.
No, that was the Rat King.
Really? Why is he luring children then?
I don't know. I didn't meet him at any point of my time. I didn't have a chance to ask him.
Why aren't you the authority on this matter like I thought you would be?
Yes, like you on Resident Evil lore and me on the Pied Piper. I'll do my thesis on it.
Oh, shots fired. I see how it is.
Look, so just starting the story with that really kind of took me out of it for a period of time, I think. It's just so out of left field, and you do find out that it is more virus stuff. Marcus is actually the leeches gathering into the form to pretend that they are their dead master.
I mean, it's really ridiculous what's going on with that, because it's not like the sci-fi aspect of it. It's really supernatural and magical that these leeches respond to, like, opera music. And they kind of, like, form humans, like, or human adjacent, like creatures, and they, like, come out of, like, they originate as, like, fluid, and then they turn back into leeches, and, like, there's a lot that's kind of unexplained about it.
Yeah, human-adjacent creature is how I describe myself as well.
Yeah, I relate to that.
And then the enemies. It's not the best selection of Resident Evil enemies we've ever seen.
No.
You've got your standard zombies. You've got the Eliminators, who are pain-in-the-ass monkeys. Worse than the dogs, because the dogs... You know, the dogs will strike here and there, but mostly running circles, whereas the Eliminators, they fucking eliminate. True to their name.
I mean, they're just really annoying, and then they just soak up bullets, but then you just work out, oh, I can just run through them and not even try and engage in fighting them.
I don't think I ever worked that out, but okay.
You can. Well, you did. I remember you doing that, where you're just like, I'm just going to run past them. Sometimes that wasn't successful, but there were attempts made.
There are also the Mimicry Marcuses, who are basically the slugs taking a human-like form. One of the more powerful enemies.
Human-adjacent.
Yeah, human-adjacent, sorry. We've got to respect the distinction.
Yeah.
And they're intimidating to the point that when they surface on screen, they actually have their own musical score play, which I kind of like, actually.
Yeah, because I think the music in the game is interesting because there isn't a lot of it. But then it matters when, you know, the opera is used to wield lychee, like, armies against you. So... the music is an interesting thing in Resident Evil 0.
Although, actually, I can't necessarily think of a lot of the tracks distinctly, other than the Mimicry Marcus summoning track and the sort of running from the train when it's about to crash track.
Well, that's the thing. There's a lot of, like, just sort of white noise sounds that play. Like,
interesting, yeah.
Constantly. And that is interesting because sometimes that kind of silence can be quite unnerving. I mean, you were streaming it when you were playing it, so And you sometimes are, not quiet. So the benefits of that kind of like sound may have been a little lost in your experience. Just sort of sitting
subtle.
with a lack of music and a lack of kind of impactful sound work.
Feeling silences, yeah.
Feeling silences. Sometimes you do. Sometimes.
Rarely.
You just take your drink and let those silences happen.
Soak
You
it
just
in.
do that. Soak it in. So yeah, there isn't a lot of music, and that's a little bit different from Resident Evil 1 and, subsequent titles as well.
Especially Resident Evil 1 Director's Cut. That had some tremendous music.
I wouldn't know.
I'll take you down that rabbit hole off camera. We're already off camera.
Okay, perfect.
I'm filling this surreptitiously for my own amusement.
Yeah, okay. We're on camera, yes. It's just a camera I'm not aware of. That's fine. Yeah.
You haven't found it yet, so...
Yet. Oh, I will. Anyway.
Also, actually, I wanted to talk a little bit about the puzzles in this game. It's not actually as puzzle-centric as the other games of the time, I feel.
Yeah? How did you find the puzzles, Tony, when you were doing them?
I had a little bit of struggle, some might say.
Okay, so how does that lend itself, do you think, to, like, the discussion of new players or people new to the titles and things? Because they are kind of complicated, those puzzles.
Well, I think it's fine for the most part because there's no sense of pressure to a lot of the puzzles. Except for, in the train segment, you have a timed segment where you have to hit the brakes on the train. So you have to run through the entire, all the carriages with zombies and, figure out like a simple addition mini game.
Okay, yes, go on. Mm-hmm.
But because it comes very early on, like, there's a sense of pressure there that I'm not necessarily sure new players are going to benefit from.
And is that I'm trying to recall that in terms of like with the characters, because I don't think we've really discussed it, but the idea that you are controlling both characters and at times you're separating them because one of them only can go ahead, or you need one of them specifically with an item or whatever to complete a puzzle, or however it turns out. So I'm trying to recall in that moment which character you were using when you did that puzzle.
For me, I think the first time I tried to use Rebecca because I preferred Rebecca just as a character, but I think in subsequent times I used Billy because he could tank more hits. So yeah. I do like it how in some of the you have to split up scenarios, you can freely choose who you'd like to proceed with, which is neat.
And then you're making those decisions based on, I guess, if you're considering, Billy has more defense, or which character has which specific item or the ability to use it that will benefit what you're trying to achieve.
Most of the time, when I started figuring out the mechanics, I found that this divide and conquer was actually preferable to having the AI try to hold its own. For those who are unfamiliar with how it works, you will have the other character following you, and they can take basic commands such as wait here, attack or don't attack. You can move them with the other control stick as well, which is hit or miss, but ultimately it's just better to just clear the room with one character than to, even if there's enemies still there, to have the second character go through on a completely different run.
Yeah, but you just need to be mindful of where you're leaving your other character, because they can still be attacked, and if they die, it's game over.
Yes, it was kind of like the same experience you felt in Resident Evil 4 when you decided to leave Ashley behind, only to find that someone just snatches her up, like...
Yeah.
It's
she can't just be left alone.
No, it's like Detroit, you can't leave her anywhere.
Nice.
Take that, Michigan!
Got him.
Wait! I've got to find Billy.
Billy Coen? You mean you found that criminal?
Yes, but we got separated and...
No point worrying about him. He won't make it. Come on, let's go.
So, all right, I'm going to ask you point blank. Would you call it a good game?
I think yes. Honestly,
For
yes.
for something you've never played. Yes, love that.
For something I haven't played, and bearing in mind the kinds of like games I like to agonize through, I think yes, because I think it does things that a lot of other games don't. I think there is a real aesthetic to the game. There's a real homage to what Resident Evil was, obviously, at that time, that Resident Evil now like has sort of veered away from and kind of tried to revisit. And there's a charm, there's it's a spooky kind of game with the pressures that are in there, with the fixed camera angles, the tank controls, which are optional, with the inventory management, with the zapping system. You've got these things you really have to really manage, and that's like a skill that you need to develop. And I think a lot of games don't rely on skill development as much.
Yeah, and I guess you really get into a sense of flow when you're playing Resident Evil 0. It's stunted in so much that you'll have to occasionally go through long segments of just trafficking items along the ground. But there is something really satisfying about the application of when it's working, it works really well. And
yeah,
I think I would, at the end of the day, declare it to be like a poor man's Resident Evil remake.
Yeah, so is that you saying that you think it's a good game?
I'm trying to think whether I can actually answer that objectively, in so much that I have a real affinity for the game and this series, to the point where when I finished Resident Evil 0, I was sadder than when I had finished preceding games.
And why was that, though?
I guess it could be a lot of external factors. It could be the fact that, this was the stream where I met you, and now that experience was over, which, that could be a thing. Or it could be that, I missed this world. It could be also the power of hindsight, knowing that that was the last example of a Resident Evil game that followed that formula. And I would dare say that, short of indie games, which I would very much like to try, we're not going to get that again.
No, I don't think so.
No. So, Is it a good game? I would say good. It's worth playing, and I guess, can it really be a bad game if you think that it's still worth experiencing?
Yeah. See, I feel like there's more good to it than bad. There is bad to it. There are issues with it for sure, and it's not going to be to everyone's liking. Not everyone's going and I think that's a big part of it. When people think of Resident Evil 0, I think they think of the train and not much else, because maybe they don't progress beyond that. You have a lot to manage in that game. So, yeah, it's not a great game. It's a complicated, kind of flawed game, but I think there's more good to it than bad.
And when we're talking about the bad, we're mostly referring to the fucking hookshot.
Oh my gosh.
Billy, I just need to know. I need to know the truth. Did you kill 23 people? I'm not going to judge you. I just want to know the truth.
If you were to rank the Resident Evil games, where does it sit for you?
Well, see, again, it's that feeling of not really being able to be that objective about it, because there is a real sentimentality to this game for me. I think how authentic it is to like the original playstyle of Resident Evil is significant, but it's quite forgetful. The story, everything with Marcus and his opera singing with his leeches, pretty pointless, not very impactful at all. So, and they're things that I do care about. I do care about narrative. I do care about, characters and how they progress as well. So it's like, there's that with Resident Evil 0, but there's the significance of what that game represents for me personally. And that And I think that's a big part of games and things too. I mean, we often have so much nostalgia about games from our childhoods and things. And that's usually okay and acceptable. So maybe I should just lean into it and say, yeah, it's my number one Resident Evil game, purely based on the fact that I got to meet you through it.
It's my least favorite.
Yeah, okay, done.
So, I think if I were to look at it objectively, so
Good
far
luck.
I've played Resident Evil Remake, Resident Evil 2 Remake, Resident Evil 3 Remake, and Resident Evil 0. I would
And
say
you're on 4 at the moment.
I'm on 4 at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Still early in 4, so I can't really opine on that one yet. But it has been, I would feel like, I can see the reasons why many consider it to be the weakest of the series. So I would say it's the weakest game. But for various reasons, the sentimentality that I feel for it, not only just because of the circumstances of meeting you, but also because, like I said before, it feels like a Resident Evil game should to me. It probably, in that sense, on just personal affection, is second only to Resident Evil Remake.
Yeah, that's pretty significant.
It is also really, really freaking beautiful. Like, those pre-rendered
Yes.
environments are stunning. And, like, I did this analogy on Resident Evil Remake and how it was 20 years old back in March. And for comparison, when Resident Evil Remake came out, the games that came out 20 years prior to that were E.T. It shows that we have not, I guess technology has slowed down.
Oh, yeah, it has.
To my eye, the last WoW generation was the generation that the Resident Evil remakes came out in. The PS2, the Xbox, and the GameCube, where suddenly you couldn't see the polygons. Things looked like they were supposed to look like in the artistic vision.
Yeah, definitely.
This doesn't look like a 20-year-old game. It plays like one in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But I mean, I already know the answer, but I'll ask the question out of a sense of arbitrariness.
Arbitrary duty?
Yeah, thank you. I was going to say arbitration.
Arbiduty. Arbiduty.
That one.
Yeah.
Basically, would you recommend people play this game?
No.
Fuck! God, I wasn't ready for that.
I don't think I would, because I don't know many people who would be patient enough, really, to tolerate all those things we've talked about.
Yeah, you definitely wouldn't have it as someone's first Resident Evil game.
Oh, no. You'd recommend it based on someone, like, telling you that they have an affection for Resident Evil, and you go, well, this one's overlooked. Maybe you should consider this.
Like a trap of some kind.
Yeah. But I think you appreciate it only because you already have an appreciation for Resident Evil, right?
Yeah, actually, come to think of it, because when I played Resident Evil Remake last year, I had only played Resident Evil 3 as a kid, and it didn't do it for me. It was just not an intersection of what I wanted from gaming at the time. I found it scary, and I was a frightened little boy. Now I am a frightened old man. But
thank you for that story.
Yeah,
that insight.
That'll be the peak right there. I think for me, Resident Evil Remake was able to do all the things that I didn't realize were so beloved in the series. Whereas Resident Evil 0 does those things, but it's so muddied with all of these short-sighted ideas that are really fun ideas, but they needed refining. More refining than they got or were available at the time when this was made. Yeah. And had I not had that, like you said, that built-in love for this franchise that I've developed, I would... If this had been my first Resident Evil, maybe I wouldn't have stuck with the series. Maybe I would have said, oh, that was an interesting one-off. I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, you have to overlook a lot, I think, to appreciate what there is to appreciate about this game.
Also, not a very scary game, I'd say. I can't really think of a lot of frightening moments for me.
No, I think there's really there's like the anxiety from, those management aspects, but there isn't fear or real jump scares or anything like that happen.
Officially, Lieutenant Billy Coen is dead.
Yeah, I'm just a zombie now.
Was there anything else you wanted to say about Resident Evil 0 before we leave it in the rearview mirror for possibly the rest of our lives?
Oh no. Well, the only thing I was going to bring up was that I was looking through like Steam reviews as well to get like the ideas that people were sharing about it, because it is so divisive. It's such an interesting thing with the game. And there was one review which was like, this is the Dark Souls of Resident Evil. And I was like, that's kind of interesting, actually, when you consider what we were saying about, like, moving your, like, inventory stuff, but also, with your save files and the limited ability to do so and dying and stuff. I could kind of see that as a point, but I just thought I'd mention it and see what your thoughts were on that review.
Yeah, I mean, it has been, I would say, the most difficult one I've played. There was a section roughly around the second or third episode of streaming. I do my streaming in durations usually of 3 hours, so it was about at the 6 to 9 hour mark where, because I had no resources, I really did feel as though I couldn't proceed. And I like that. It doesn't necessarily make for great content, but from a standpoint of what you want a game to be, it's a challenging game, or at least it was for me, who is somewhat inept at Resident Evil.
No.
So I would... you sure about that?
Say it isn't so.
Say less. So I would give it that, yeah.
Okay, you'd throw it a bone.
Yes.
A juicy zombie bone.
Yes, I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So, actually, before we close out for the night, what Resident Evil games have you played? Because I'm slightly leery about your history with this series.
Wait, as in you're expecting me to be like, oh, none, 0.
Yes. It's like, I was like, have you played Resident Evil? You're like, 0. Oh, she's played Resident Evil 0.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll just go with that. No.
Yeah.
I've played only a couple and watched Let's Plays of a few of them. So
there you go, yeah.
My murky knowledge comes from a combination of things.
Perfect.
As it does with everything in life, to be honest, my murky knowledge.
I just wanted to clear that up for the listeners in case they thought you were like some sort of a paper tiger of sorts who had no actual
just a mysterious
authority.
Anomaly, as we already established.
Yes,
yeah.
Good callback. Well, with that, I guess we will close the episode and say thank you to Rebecca Chambers and to a lesser degree Billy Coen, who's kind of a dick.
Yeah, he really is.
Well, Lady Valiant, so thank you so much for talking with me today. We
God.
hope to do more episodes on various games of our fancy here on Golly, a gaming podcast brought to you by EZIYODA.com, formerly known as Box Machine, potentially known as
Golly by
Dulcimer
Jove.
Tones, Golly by Jove.
And the future name that it will probably be changed to.
What, Blood Slaps?
Oh yeah, Blood Slaps. That was another
Blood Slaps. That was the low key MVP.
Blood Slaps. Yes.
Reminds me of a baseball podcast I listened to, and they had like various title suggestions, and one of them was like a joke phrase they keep using called "straight down the dick," and that won. And they're like, "We're not fucking calling it that. We're not going to get any sponsors."
No, that would be a terrible idea. But fun. But fun.
Yes! Just like this podcast was. A terrible idea,
But fun.
I'm always about butt fun. Good. Good golly.